Welcome to The Next Stage, a podcast that brings together the professionals who support seniors and their families through life's major transitions. Hosted by Isaac Tallwin from the Krygier Wealth Management team at RBC Dominion Securities. From home care and downsizing to estate planning and legacy protection, we highlight the people making aging easier. And now, your host, Isaac.
All opinions and views expressed by the speakers are not representative of views and opinions of RBC Dominion Securities, Inc. All information and opinions provided in this video are in good faith, but without legal responsibility.
Today, we're excited to have with us Daniel Clarke, CEO and founder of Elderado.
Trying to navigate what their options were, and they just felt, lost, like there wasn't anyone there. We knew that there was a problem here that a lot of families were dealing with. What I did was I set an 18-minute timer for each home. Over 34,000 people use it, and so we've been able to gather a lot of feedback. That's not the end of your story. There's still chapters left to be written.
Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Isaac.
So Daniel, tell us a little bit about Elderado.
Yeah, so Elderado is a free website that families can use to be able to search, filter, compare, and contact every long-term care and retirement home option in Ontario.
So how did you come to develop this platform?
Yeah, so I was a family caregiver to my grandma, and my grandma ended up she was hospitalized with lupus, and it was in the hospital where we found out she needed to move into a long-term care home or a retirement home. And that really opened up my eyes to just how overwhelming and frustrating it can be to navigate the elder care landscape. So when we were in the hospital, we were paired with a social worker, and she really wanted to be able to help us. Problem is that in a lot of ways, her hands were tied and her resources were really limited. So she was able to give us a list of the local long-term care homes, but wasn't allowed to provide recommendations, and then didn't have information about retirement homes. So for the next week, my family had to run around to all sorts of different homes, scour the internet, trying to collect information to figure out which home would be the best fit for my grandma.
That's so interesting. So how did you develop the platform?
Yeah, so we started working on Elderado in 2023, and the first thing that we did was we interviewed 80 families that had a loved one move into a long-term care or retirement home in the previous 18 months, because we really wanted to get a sense of, was this just a problem that was more isolated to my family, or was this something that was kind of a much broader problem? And we saw a lot of trends in that research, with largely people being really frustrated, really dissatisfied with just how difficult it is to be able to navigate their care options. So once we knew that there was a problem here that a lot of families were dealing with, we set out to build our database. We've got all 1,400 long-term care and retirement homes in our database, but we had to collect the information by going home by home. So to get into the nitty gritty, what I did was I set an 18-minute timer for each home, and that then gave me time to try and find as much information I could about each home. So looking on the internet, looking on YouTube, calling the home, whatever it might be. So I was able to get through about 100 homes a week. So it took me about 4 months to build the initial database. But now we have a database with every elder care home in the province, and it's really easy to be able to kind of search and filter. It works a lot like if you're booking a hotel on booking.com, where you search in an area, you got different filters you can use, and then you got information on all the different homes. With Elderado, you search in an area, we've got filters like the starting price, the language of care, the culture, the care services. And when you look at a home, you'll find things like video tours, inspection reports, sample menus, activity calendars, things that give you a feel for what day-to-day life is like. And we also let you contact all the homes directly, whether you're going to send them a message or give them a call.
So I would imagine that there's all sorts of filters that you could have incorporated into the search. How did you decide what went into Elderado and what stayed out?
Yeah, so we use a lot of feedback from our users. So we actually launched Elderado in February of 2024, and we've now had over 34,000 people as the time of recording us. We've had over 34,000 people use it, and so we've been able to gather a lot of feedback from our users, also from other stakeholders, like people who help families navigate, whether it's a social worker, a discharge planner, a care coordinator, or even some of the retirement homes or long-term care homes themselves, because we want to make sure that the homes feel like they're well represented on our platform. And then it just becomes a matter of we try and reach kind of critical mass for any time we're adding a new filter. So, for example, something that we're working on right now is adding a filter for the homes that allow pets, because we've heard from a lot of families that they want to know which homes they can bring, their dog or their cat to. So, yeah, we really try and listen to the different stakeholders, and then once we know that there's something that people are going to want, then we figure out the way that we're going to be able to build out that filter.
And what are some of the filters you have now?
Yeah, so starting price is a really popular one. So it doesn't give you perspective on what the entire cost is going to be, but it gives you a starting point, and that's always something that can be very frustrating in this space. Is it can be really hard to find prices online. So we try and make that as accessible as possible. Language of care is a big one. So there's currently 23 different languages of care besides English that at least one home in Ontario offers care. So this is especially important if you've got dementia or Alzheimer's. One of the early signs of that is that you lose second and third languages. So if you can receive care in your native tongue, you can remain independent longer. We also have filters for culturally designated homes. So, for example, a home that has an Italian cultural designation, the meals will be more geared towards Italians. A lot of the activities, you might be playing, Scopa instead of euchre or something like that. And a lot of the residents will be of that culture. So it's just a much more comfortable environment for those residents. And then also things like care services. So that if you need help with ambulation and getting around, or you need assistance with feeding, then we can help you find the homes that can provide that care.
So I imagine you guys have like this database with all this information. And I actually went to a home recently and they were talking about price. And these prices, obviously they can fluctuate because there's inflation and things happen. They have different vacancy rates. How do you stay on top of all this information to make sure it's up to date, it's relevant?
Yeah, so there's the majority of the information about a home, it doesn't change that frequently. So, the basic care services that they provide, the levels of care, things like that do remain relatively constant. What we do currently is about every 3 months, we try and update our database. So it took us a long time to build the initial database, but now we get a lot of support from different homes that update us when things change on their end, or homes that don't do that, then we'll have a look online and or give them a call. So check out their website or give them a call to get the most current information. And we're about to roll out a dashboard so that retirement homes can help keep some of this information updated on their own. Because you're right, one of the things that does change most frequently is the price. It's usually not drastic swings. So there's certainly times where on Elderado they could say that a suite starts at $3,700 and it's now $3,800, and that's something that we try and get. As soon as we know there's those changes, we update it. But yeah, it is something where there are times where we lag behind by a month or so for what the most current information is on a home.
It's great that the homes now come to you and kind of offer their input on what has changed. But when you were first developing this platform, how did you gather all that information?
Yeah, so what we first tried doing is we sent emails out to all the homes saying like, hey, would you mind filling out this form for us? So as I alluded to, there's 1,400 homes. 2 homes responded, and for good reason. They didn't know who we were. They didn't know what we were doing. So what we then decided that we were going to do is just kind of go out and try and find this information on our own. So some of the information we could find online, some of the information we had to call them. And then now something that's a big part of what I do is I try and go out to as many homes as possible. So far this year, I've toured 47 retirement homes. My plan is to tour at least 100 retirement homes this year. I know that's just a drop in a bucket compared to the 780 retirement homes that we have, plus another 620 long-term care homes. But love getting into as many homes as it can, because big thing that showed me is that every home has its own personality, and amenities are great, and different programs that are offered, all that sort of stuff's great, but it's really the people inside the home that make it the home and that it's going to make you feel comfortable. So by going around to so many different retirement homes and touring so many different retirement homes, it's helped us get better perspective on what sort of information we want to have on the website so that we can make sure different homes are really able to put their best foot forward and are kind of represented in a way that shows their personality.
And I've seen some of your posts, and you go down, you'll sleep overnight at the homes, you'll participate in some of the classes. How has this changed your thinking around retirement living?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily changed. I think something that I'm really fortunate is that my grandpa's 97. He still lives at home independently. We golf in the summertime. He's very kind of active and involved. And I had always, he's very much, to me, he's the exception. He's someone that I very much look up to. But I hadn't realized, that there's a lot that you can still do. If you're looking at especially at a retirement home, that's not the end of your story. It's, just another chapter to be written, and that there's all sorts of people that are, living their best lives, that are, doing new things, taking new classes. I was just at a retirement home in, where was it, when I was out in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and I learned that, one of their most popular programs there are they take classes, and they'd just done a creative writing class. And so that's been a really big message that we try and share, is that if you're moving into a retirement home, that's not the end of your story. There's still chapters left to be written, and we want to help you find the home where you're going to be able to live your best life.
That's amazing. Yeah, we often find with clients, they'll come to us having sold a home, so we do the management of those assets. And they're very nervous about what the next stage is going to be, but we often find that they're very excited with what the outcome is and how much they're able to accomplish. Maybe now that they don't have the maintenance of their current home, maybe now that they have the liquidity, they have the assets to fund travel or things like that. Is that something you see?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big proponent of people actually getting into retirement homes, especially if there's things like open houses or different events that are going on there, to really see what retirement living is. I'm not going to say that retirement living is for everybody, but a lot of people have this warped perception, and they think of it as a very sterile, almost hospital-like environment, where in reality there's retirement homes that rival the nicest resorts you've ever been to, that have great community within them, that have all these really great amenities. So it's definitely not uncommon to hear that people wish that they moved into independent living sooner in a retirement home, and that likewise from family members that speak to who had a loved one move into especially moving into independent living, that they talk about the way that their loved one has been re-energized, that they're eating better, that they're a lot more socially engaged, and that's something that I'd love to see.
And is there any stories that someone's engaged with your platform and it's really changed their life or changed how they found their retirement home?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of really incredible messages, and it's really something that, for our team, it helps us, to kind of keep working, keep pushing. Because, when you hear messages from people that, especially those people that had been, searching for care, that have been trying to navigate what their options were, and they just felt, lost, like there wasn't anyone there that was able to support them. Because the reality is, especially if you're looking on the long-term care side of things, that there's not a lot of resources to support you, just because the system is so stressed. We've got close to 50,000 people waiting for long-term care. So, already those resources are spread very thin. So then they find our platform, they find the way that they can use our filters in order to figure out which homes are going to be the right fit, that they can contact the homes directly through our platform, and that it just makes their life so much easier. And when we get messages like that, we try and always make sure to share them amongst the team, because it's just so motivating, and it's why we do this.
And it seems kind of intuitive what you've done to create this TripAdvisor around retirement living. Are there any challenges that came up that you didn't necessarily expect?
Yeah, I mean, initially I thought it was going to be a lot easier for us to build out this the initial database that we were working off of. I didn't. If I would have known when we started that it would have taken a little over 4 months for us to build the initial database, like that was something that I thought was going to be a much easier step for us. And then, once we got started, we were very much the new kids on the block, and not everyone was quite sure of, our place within the market. There have been people who have tried to do some elder care navigation in the past that, they haven't necessarily followed through on the way they said that they were going to be able to help support families or represent families. So, that was a challenge that we had to overcome. But we keep showing up to events. We try and show that we are who we say we are, and building trust is just so important for us. And that's really the reason why we've been able to get to where we are is because we put so much focus on building trust. That's something that we don't ever want to sacrifice with any of our with any of our stakeholders.
And I understand that you guys haven't even monetized your platform yet. What went into that decision? Why haven't you kind of spread that out?
Yeah. So not monetizing. So, we're 29 months into this. So I'm 29 months without a paycheck. And it's not that we haven't wanted to monetize, but we needed to make sure that we could find a way that doesn't betray the families that use our platform. Traditionally the way that navigators make money is that they you either charge families for access to the information, or you charge homes to have a presence on your platform or to receive the leads. So we weren't going to charge families. That just kind of goes against our founding values, where we want to really represent those family caregivers, represent the lens and the perspective that we come from. And then we weren't going to, we don't want to charge homes for leads, because if we're charging homes for leads, then inevitably some homes aren't going to want to pay for leads. So then are we not going to pass those leads on to the homes? Well, no, we would still want to pass the leads on to the homes, because we want to make sure that those families are able to connect with the homes that are going to be the best fit for them. So it took us a while to figure out a revenue model that kind of fit within our founding values.
And you recently had some partnerships with other organizations in the space. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in March, we were really excited to find out that we were recipients of the Ignite Award from CABI. So CABI is the Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation. So if you work in anything to do with brain health or aging, then CABI is definitely an organization that you want to be involved in. And the doors that's opened up for us has been incredible. Later on this week, we're taking part in they're helping us run a focus group. The way that we've been able to connect with some of their staff or other stakeholders in the industry has been really great way for us to be able to expand our network and let more people know what we're doing, and be able to be part of discussions about how we can make it easier for people to navigate elder care, and really the wider elder care landscape of what can we do to really kind of take that next step. Because anyone who's been through the process of looking for a long-term care home or retirement home, that's just the start. Once your loved one moves in, there's still a lot of advocacy that has to happen, especially once people's health starts to decline. And there's a lot of ways that we can do a lot more for our aging loved ones. And I'm really excited to be kind of part of those conversations now as to what can we do, because we all hope to live a long life, and so what is our life going to look like when we get there?
That's incredible, and it leads me into my next question, which is, how do you see the future of Elderado?
Yeah, so we are right now very focused on Ontario. There's big problems just here in our province in terms of being able to navigate your elder care options, but we definitely do want to expand nationally. These problems aren't isolated just to Ontario. We've always had a focus on solving problems here in Canada first, because the reality is that we've all seen the stats on the number of baby boomers, the aging demographics. We have something like 3 times the population of people who are 85 plus in 15 years from now. So, these are all big problems that we're facing. And so we want to really be a voice at the table that represents those family caregivers. It's a voice that I feel like a lot of times has been left out of a lot of conversations. And they're a really important stakeholder because they end up doing a lot of that advocacy. They're doing a lot of the, search for their loved one to find, the right care or whatever it is that they need. So we want to be able to continue to support those family caregivers, the older adults, to make sure that they can, get the care that they're looking for and really make it easier so that they can spend more time with their loved ones and less time searching for information.
So if there was advice you would give to a family that's just beginning their search for elder care options, what would it be?
Yeah, so you kind of fall into two buckets. There's the people who are proactive. So anybody who is proactive at it, like good on you. Like that's the position that everybody wants to be in. For a lot of people that are doing, for a lot of people, there's some sort of event that suddenly brings on that we need to look for care for mom, for dad, for a neighbor, for grandma, for grandpa, whoever it might be. And in those instances, what's going to be really important is thinking about what does your loved one want. Whoever needs that care, you're not looking for care for yourself. I do see that certain times families get a little bit caught up and they'll go into a home and it's like, oh, I would love to live here. I love these amenities. And that can be great, but is your loved one going to love it there? And if you're looking more on the long-term care side of things, then that's where advocacy becomes a much bigger part where there's never enough resources available within long-term care homes. So, finding a long-term care home that can be close to somebody that can advocate on that person's behalf is probably going to be, in terms of tips, is probably going to be something that is going to lead to better outcomes for the entire family. It's not going to make it easier. It's still going to be a lot of hard work, but having somebody that can having somebody that's close by that can do that advocating is definitely something that I'd recommend.
And then there's one last question I wanted to ask you, because you likely have more experience than almost anyone in the city when it comes to touring and seeing different homes. Are there any red flags when it comes to finding a retirement home that you would look out for?
Yeah, so something that I've definitely noticed is, I've toured 47 retirement homes so far this year. I plan on touring at least 100. But something that I do always look out for is that when you're touring in a home, is the salesperson acknowledging the residents that you pass by in the halls? Even better, do they know them? Do they know them by name? That's something that it's not the be all end all, but you want to live in an environment that feels like home, that feels comfortable. And if you're somewhere where it feels like, kind of the staff are the staff and the residents are the residents, then it's probably not going to feel as much like home. Whereas if you're in a home where there's a lot more kind of cohesion between the residents and the staff, and in reality, I'd say that's the vast majority of homes that I've been in are like that. But it is something that I always tell people to look out for, is just see the way that the interactions happen between residents and staff, because it's not necessarily the be all end all, but it can be a little bit of a canary in a coal mine.
Well, Daniel, thank you for joining us, and it's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Isaac. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Next Stage podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to follow the show and share it with someone who may benefit. For resources and ways to connect with trusted professionals, check out the show notes below.